Hello, everybody. Teching 101 here, and as we all know, it is mid-November. Well, I guess late November now. When does it stop being mid-November and start being late November? Whatever. It's November before Thanksgiving, which means, of course, I have my Christmas tree up already. So, yeah, see that back there? Nice little Christmas tree. Katakuri helped me with the donut ornaments. That's nice. We also have a little bee up there. That's cool. Little gnome topper on my tree. Barry is getting into the holiday spirit. He is still a vampire, but he has a Santa hat on now. Santa hat Vampire Barry on sale now. Go get yours. No, I'm just kidding. There will probably be other variants of Barry at some point, maybe even an astronaut version of Barry, but for right now, no, it's just Vampire Santa hat Barry. This is how it goes. All right. Well, that's enough of that. Time to get into the video topic, and this one is a serious one, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very serious topic. Even the name is serious, so I need you to all put on your serious face right now. Just be like, yeah. Like you're watching this video on your phone right now, and you're just like, yeah, teching. Serious. More serious. Not serious enough. Even more serious. Like, okay. Imagine somebody's on a bus or a subway watching this right now, and everybody's just like, okay, what do you do? That's a very serious video you're watching. It's very intense. Okay. The World Military Draft. There's not a lot of fun in that word, right? There's not a lot of whimsy and like, let's go on a magical anime adventure in a world of pirates. No. World Military Draft. A very authoritarian word, okay? Something like you would read in like a George Orwell novel, like in 1984. It's like, oh yes, we had to sign up for the World Military Draft. It's like, all right, but that is something that exists in One Piece, and we actually got a lot of information about it lately in the questions that Oda answered, and then also the SBS. We also got some stuff from that. We learned a lot about Fujitora and Aramaki's backstories involving the draft, so talking about it today. And it also makes sense why it is such a harsh, serious word and series of words, because Sakazuki was the one that came up with this. I want you guys to just back up for a moment, and you can take off the serious face for right now. And I want you to remember back to Marineford, okay? Now, we missed a lot of the aftermath with Marineford because we had the time skip, right? We got a little bit of that. We got a little bit of, like, Marineford being fixed up, and, like, actually Luffy went back and rang the Ox Bell and everything. We saw, like, Kuzan and Smoker meeting. We saw Sengoku a little bit there. So we got to see a little bit of aftermath. But shortly after the Marineford War, shortly after Ace and Whitebeard died, and, you know, Blackbeard made his big splash, and he stole the Guru no Mi and all that stuff, Luffy goes off to some island somewhere to punch a bunch of animals. Usopp is playing with some flowers. Nami's floating around on a cloud. Chopper's playing with birds or something. I don't remember that, but it's too much. But meanwhile, the Marines had to deal with this. So, like, Sengoku steps down, which is like, what? Now, of all times, you're stepping down? And Sengoku's like, yeah, I've seen enough shit. I don't want to be Fleet Admiral anymore. I'm done. So he turns in his resignation letter to Kong. And so it's like, all right, well, we need a new Fleet Admiral. And so, you know, Akainu is just like, I'll be the Fleet Admiral. And then so Kuzan sees that, and he's just like, oh, no, I can't let this guy be the new Fleet Admiral. He's like, okay, big whoop. Want to fight about it? Actually, I do. So then they go off to Punk Hazard, and they have this big epic battle, which is more of like a cataclysmic Armageddon type deal. Like half of the island is a hellscape. Half of it is Antarctica, you know, so it's insane there. And they have this big epic, you know, clash that creates the giant lake. Remember that giant lake that's right in the center of Punk Hazard? That was the epicenter of like a final anime attack that we've never seen. I hope at some point we go back and see that fight, because that would actually be really cool. Their battle was so intense, it turned Punk Hazard into a Pokeball, okay? Yeah, pretty crazy. So then, you know, Aokiji gets beaten down, he loses, he leaves, he's like, screw this, I'm out of here. And then Sakazuki takes over. And Sakazuki, you know, he sits down in the chair, and he's like, all right, I'm the Fleet Admiral now. Lights up a big-ass cigar, and he's like, all right, first thing we're gonna do. Hold on. I don't. First thing we're gonna do. World Military Draft. We need to get some strong people in the Marines. We need to get some strong men and women. We don't discriminate in the Marines, but we need strong people in the Marines if we're gonna fight the pirate scourge. You know, that was Akainu's first thing, and I'm sure a lot of the people that worked under him were immediately like, yeah, okay, this guy's going to be a little bit more intense than Sengoku was. This guy's really going full on with it. All right, so a good old-fashioned world military draft. All right, so here's the deal. There's a lot of groups in One Piece that we're very well acquainted with, right? We got pirates, you know, main characters of the story. The Straw Hats are pirates. We got the Yonko. We got the warlords were, you know, basically legalized pirates, essentially privateers, okay? Then you have the Marines, you know, fighting for truth and justice, or at least fighting for some variance of justice. We have the revolutionaries that are on the side of the people, right? We got bounty hunters as a group. They don't show up that often, but hey, Johnny and Yosaku, they're fishermen. I'm assuming they maybe still do bounty hunting on their spare time, but they're mostly fishermen, right? But one group that we don't really focus on all that much, we have seen them, there's examples I can give, are the individual armies in the kingdoms of the world government, because the world government is a world government, but there's still individual kingdoms on islands that have their own policies. The world government really seems kind of hands-off on a lot of this stuff. As long as you can provide a heavenly tribute to the Tenryubito every year, or multiple times a year, I don't know exactly how many times the heavenly tribute needs to be given. I don't know, it's basically however many times the Tenryubito want it to be. But at any rate, you know, if you want to have like a democracy, if you want to have a monarchy, if you want to have an oligarchy, if you want to have different types of government, the world government really doesn't seem to care, as long as it's like you're paying your dues kind of thing. Like, look at Water 7. Water 7 doesn't have a king. The mayor of Water 7, Iceberg, calls the shot, and he's like an elected leader, and a lot of other things. There's a lot of monarchies in One Piece. We've seen that. But yeah, you know, that's basically how it goes. So obviously those kingdoms are going to have their own militaries. They're going to have their own individual armies and their own navies. In fact, Orlumbus was an adventurer that was part of the Standing Kingdom before he became part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Brook famously served as the leader of a battle convoy for a particular nation's military in the West Blue, where he's from. Okay, so these militaries pop up every now and then. And in fact, probably the most famous example of this, in Alabasta being its own kingdom, they had their own military. Here are like the strongest members of the Alabasta Royal Guard. Remember these dudes? They didn't really do much. They roided out on that hero's water and tried to fight Crocodile. They didn't get very far, as you can imagine, but hey, they tried. And the leaders, like the strongest members of the Alabasta military, would have been Chaka and Pell. The implication is that Pell was the strongest, which, to be fair, he was able to tank a nuke. So, I mean, like, his durability stat on that stand of his is pretty damn high, okay? You know, this is my stand, free birds. So Pell was pretty powerful. I mean, like, you know, not compared to like Crocodile or like any of the Yonko or anything like that. But if you put Pell up against like a regular kind of dude, you know, he's like really freaking strong, right? And he was the head of the military, right? So we see this, you know, a few examples. There was also Tank at Dressrosa. Tank was like the head of the guard at, you know, he worked under King Riku Dole III. Okay, so yeah, so the world military draft is essentially like, okay, we're going to go and scout around at these different, like, individual militaries on these kingdoms, and we're going to take the strongest members of those militaries, and we're going to contract them, we're going to draft them into the Marines so they work for us. That's Sakazuki's idea, to bolster the power. Now, the problem with that, and probably the reason that Sengoku never did something like this, because he was Fleet Admiral for a long time, was because there's like a balance of power thing you got to maintain here, okay? And if you take away the strongest warriors from these kingdoms and draft them into the Marines and have them go off to headquarters or wherever in the world the Marines want to send them, those militaries, those armies, are going to be substantially weaker, and therefore the kingdom is also going to suffer from that, okay? Which makes it more likely that they could be attacked by pirates, which then the Marines would have to get involved anyway if the kingdom is still allied with the world government. So it seems like more work for them no matter what, right? That's kind of the situation there. And so from what we've learned in the SBS and in the subsequent question that Oda answered in like his 10 question things, we know that Aramaki, Green Bull, was drafted from the Taya Kingdom in the south, and that Fujitora, well, he originates from the Aoi Kingdom, where he was the leader of, like, he was like a military general way back in the day, and then the war ended, and he was branded as a criminal, and then he had to leave, and then he eventually got drafted later when he was on Soja Island, okay, and he's from the Grand Line originally, right? Oh, by the way, I guess now that I've brought this up, I guess Pell and Shaka did not get drafted into the Marines that way. He's like, Sakazuki's up there and he's like, world military draft. I want you to find some really powerful Devil Fruit and Hockey users and bring them into the Marines. And it's like, I guess Pell and Shaka just didn't cut it, I guess. Unless they're, wait a minute, are they draft dodgers? Did Pell and Shaka, like, they burned their draft cards? Like, come on, Shaka, we're going to Canada. It's like, no! Vietnam War was probably the most, like, infamous example of this, where there was a lot of people, avoiding the draft. Although there's been drafts in U.S. history from, like, World War II and all the way back in the Civil War. The Civil War was actually interesting because you could actually just, if you got drafted into fight in the Civil War, you could just pay, like, $200 to $300 and somebody else would go to war for you in your place. That was rather controversial during the time period. But yeah, the Vietnam War was a big one where a lot of people, like, defected to Canada. I don't know exactly how this draft worked. I feel like it didn't work the exact same way. It wasn't like a random lottery or anything like that. I really do feel like the Marines sent scouts to various kingdoms and were like, hey, who's the strongest guy around, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, it's that dude over there in a prison cell. He used to be a police officer, but something happened with a woman that we're not really sure about, and now he's in prison. And that was Aramaki, and that's actually how Aramaki got drafted. And then with Issho, he was originally this military general, war criminal, and then he was as a bodyguard or like a bouncer at this bar in the Grand Line on Soja Island, and then that's where they found him, and they were like, oh, we know who you are, Issho. You were used to be this military leader in this kingdom that no longer exists because this war wiped it out, and you're branded as a war criminal. Like, so at that point, it was basically like, you're either going to impel down or you're going to join the Marines, because he's a pretty strong guy, right? So it's like, come on in there, right? Also, something interesting to mention about Aramaki. He specifically said during the reverie that he had not eaten in like 3 years or some such, and because of his devil fruit, the Mori Mori no Mi, that allows him to like live off like photosynthesis. That was something else that Oda confirmed. So therefore, he had his devil fruit before he became a member of the Marines, because it was well before, it was like within the 2-year time skip that he got drafted, okay? So that's the case there. So we don't know exactly the whole story. Oda left it. I think Oda gave way more information on Fujitora. We're probably going to get flashbacks on both of them now, considering that, like, Kaido and Big Mom are taken out. We still have Shanks and Blackbeard, of course, but I think Oda's going to really start shifting focus more to the Admirals. So we had Kizaru during Egghead, and now in the following arcs coming up, I think we're going to focus a lot more on Fujitora and Green Bull. So we're going to learn a little bit more about them. But I'd say overall, Oda gave more information about Fujitora's backstory than Aramaki's. It also probably ties into the tattoo, the kanji that's on Aramaki's chest that references, like, two people dying. And so it might be a situation with this woman where maybe they were both going to die, but only she ended up dying, and then he got blamed for it, or maybe he was completely responsible for it because he doesn't seem like a great guy, and he got thrown in jail, and then that's where the Marines found him, and then that's how he was drafted in and all that stuff, right? Yeah. So there are probably a lot of other people that were drafted through the World Military Draft. It's just that I guess Sakazuki understood, considering that, like, Kuzan left and he was promoted, that the only admiral remaining was Kizaru, and it's like, okay, we don't have time to, like, we can promote people up from the vice admiral category, but I think Fujitora and Aramaki were, like, they were in the civilian sector, I guess, but they had devil fruits that were really strong. Like, it's like, basically, it makes sense that Sakazuki would do that. He's like, scour the world, find everybody you can that has a Logia, because they're working for the government now. They're working for the Marines, okay? Because Logias are very rare, few and far between. We need to find as many as we can, and we bring them into the Marines. And they only were actually... That's a testament to something. They scoured the world during this World Military Draft. They were only able to find one Logia user. So that should give you an idea. How many Logias do you think exist total? Because there's not very many. Like in the One Piece world, like right now, I think the number used to be like 11 or 12. So we have Smoker, Crocodile, Eneru, Kuzan, Blackbeard, Kizaru, Sakazuki, Karasu, he's a new one that was kind of revealed, so that's 8. Caribou is 9, Caesar is 10, Sabo is 11, Aramaki's 12, Ace and Sabo have the same fruit, and then Monet is dead, and her fruit still has... See, that's the thing why I think Monet's fruit's going to be relevant somewhere. So there's 13 then. There's 13 canon, unique Logia powers, and Monet's is the only one that does not have a current user that we're aware of. So Monet's fruit, I think, is going to loop back around to be important, the Yuki Yuki no Mi. But other than those 13... how many more could possibly be out there, right? It's interesting because during Marineford, Kizaru mentioned, oh, yes, Mythical Zone. They're even rarer than Logias. So you'd assume that, like, whatever total number of Mythical Zone there would be slightly more Logia because the Mythical Zone category is the rarest. But in terms of Mythical Zone, all right, let's count how many Mythical Zone. Hold on. I got to run the numbers on this real quick. Hold on. Okay, so there's 14 mythical zones that have been shown in canon. In canon, mind you. 14 of those, and then 13 unique Logia powers. So they're right around the same number, but there are slightly less Logias than the mythical zones that we know about, which means there has to be some more that, there would be more Logias than mythical zones, but just barely, okay? Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent there, but just let me know down below about that. So they scour the world. They find one Logia user that's on this island, the Taya Kingdom in the South Blue. They recruit him. Then they find Fujitora, who I'm also assuming had the power beforehand. I was a little bit kind of up in the air on whether or not they had their devil fruits before or they were given them in the Marines. But no, I think because he was like a military general, like Issho was like a 5-star general in the Aoi Kingdom for this big war that they were part of, and the war had apparently been fought for a very long time, that like he had to have that power. And he's so well versed in it, like I don't think he was just given this ability like less than 2 years ago and he got that good with it. I mean, I guess he could have, but like, nah, I think he had the fruit for years, and it wasn't a Logia, so he became the first admiral that we know of that did not have, well, no, because Sengoku was an admiral before, but he had a mythical zone, which is even rarer than Logia, so you can kind of see that's like, yeah. So he got in there as a Paramecia, the first Paramecia user that is an admiral that we know of, if there's somebody else throughout history, but, we've never been, shown that yet. So, he has the ability to manipulate gravity, which is pretty broken, pretty busted. He could just call down, like, a meteor swarm whenever he wants. So that's pretty damn crazy, right? Okay. But there would be other people, too, not on that level. They were given special clearance. They didn't have to, like, they skipped right to Admiral. Which, if you'd been in the Marines for a very long time, you'd probably look at that and be like, that's kind of bullshit, but I understand why. Especially if you were a Vice Admiral. Can you imagine being the Vice Admirals, and then all of a sudden, this dude from the South Blue, this guy with tight freaking, rocker pants walks up, and he's just like, I'm a Marine now, I'm an Admiral. You'd be like, really? I've been in this organization. I've been fighting in the Marines for 30 years. And I only get Vice Admiral, and this random dude with, like, you freaking, smoking a cigarette, put on a shirt, for God's sakes. This guy becomes Admiral. Fujitora is at least more respectable. But Fujitora walks in, and he's just like, hello, everyone. I am your new Admiral, I suppose. My name is, I guess, Fujitora. It's Purple Tiger. My name's Issho. Who wants to gamble and be like, all right, this guy seems chill. This guy seems cool. I can rock around with Issho. That's fine. But yeah, and you know what? I mean, probably not, but we just don't know for certain. During Egghead, we got a lot of Vice Admirals that were just revealed out of nowhere that we had never seen before, right? Dahl was introduced right before Egghead, and we knew about Doberman. Doberman was kind of like the veteran Marine that had been around since Enies Lobby and long before that, but we had Urban and Tosa and Pomsky and Red King and all these other Vice Admirals that we had never heard of before, Guillotine, and Oda did give us a little bit of backstory for each of them during SBS. Like, we know that Hound graduated in the same class as Smoker, so he had obviously been in the Marines for a while, but who knows, maybe some of those Vice Admirals, maybe even Dahl, might have been recruited through the World Military Draft as well. That might account for why we've never seen them before. We've never heard of Vice Admiral Dahl or Vice Admiral Red King before. It's like, well, maybe because they were recruited during, the time skip and all that. I feel like Guillotine was definitely recruited through the draft, because out of all of the Vice Admirals we learned about, Guillotine's kind of the lamest. Urban has like the cannon fruit, and Dahl can kick things really hard, and she's hot, so that's a superpower. But then we get to Guillotine, and he's just like, I have this like chakram boomerang thing on my head that I just kind of throw around at people. That's my thing. And it's just like, okay, yeah, like the Marines go to this one kingdom and they have this one military, and like, who's your strongest warrior? It'd be like, well, we got this one dude that can we got this one dude. He doesn't have a devil fruit. I mean, he knows a little bit of hockey, but he can like throw a boomerang around. It's like, all right, that's the best you got. All right. So wait. If Guillotine, and this is my headcanon because we don't know this, but if Guillotine was recruited through the World Military Draft, how the hell did Shaka and Pell avoid that? They might actually have dodged it. They might actually have been like, we're not doing that. It's like Pell, we got the record. We know that you survived a point-blank nuke during the battle with Crocodile, and we know you have a pretty decent zone. You have Falcon, you can fly. That's pretty good. We want you in the Marines. If Shaka and Pell were drafted in the Marines, what ranks would they be? I think they could be Vice Admirals. Pell would be a Vice Admiral. I think Pell would be a Vice Admiral. Maybe you're looking at me and be like, nah, Pell's not that strong. I don't know, man. Like, Vice Admirals, see, it's the highest rank you can achieve in the Marines, right? So, like, basically, because there's only 3 Admiral classes. Going from Vice Admiral to Admiral is basically not going to happen. It's very, very rare that there's an opening. So the highest rank you can achieve just by working really hard and getting up through the ranks is Vice Admiral. So because of that reason, not all Vice Admirals are equal. There are some Vice Admirals like Momonga that could really fuck you up pretty bad. And then there's other Marines like Guillotine that's just like, that's all he does, okay? So, yeah. So I'm thinking, though, I think Pell could be a Vice Admiral. I mean, he has a pretty powerful, like Dalmatian is a Vice Admiral. He just turns into a dog. Shaka could maybe be a Commodore, or maybe a Rear Admiral if he really tries. If he really tries, Shaka. Shaka did not survive a nuke. Pell did. I think he deserves that rank, okay? Somebody like Tank from Dressrosa would probably just be like a captain. He wouldn't be really high up there. I don't think he did not have a devil fruit. I don't think he knew hockey or anything like that. He was just like a big, strong, muscular dude, right? But certainly you'd think the World Military Draft would favor devil fruit and hockey users above all else, right? And so that's how Fujitora Aramaki got in there. So maybe some of the Vice Admirals got in there too from that way, and maybe we'll see some lower ranked Marines that also got added to the mix there. Sakazuki is definitely someone that prefers strength over everything else. Like, even if your morals are a little questionable, right? Like, even in that case, like, I think he means, like, he needs strength more than anything, okay? And so remember, Sakazuki is also a straight-laced guy, okay? But in the case with both, look at Issho and Aramaki, I mean, one is a war criminal and one was in jail for this incident, and despite the fact that they might not adhere to the same rigid levels of morality that Sakazuki does with his absolute justice, he was still like, well, we need power. So maybe there was a situation where Sakazuki met with both of them, like, one-on-one, and was like, look, Issho, you might be a war criminal. The only way to repent for your crimes and your sins is to work for us and do what I say. If you can do that, then we'll let you off. Maybe something like that, because, there's really strong out there. And while Sakazuki was the admiral under Sengoku, the entire time he was sitting there thinking, like, if I was the fleet admiral, I would enact this. I would, day one World Military Draft, we get some strong people in there, we go to the New World, and we beat the shit out of the Yonko. And he did try. He moved Marineford over to the New World, and he recruited these guys, and then he was just like, all right, let's do it. And then he started to realize really quick that just because he's the fleet admiral doesn't mean he's at the top. You know, Kong is above him, the God's Knights are above Kong, the Gorosei are above the God's Knights, and then above, you know, the Gorosei are Eam, and I don't think Sakazuki even knows about the existence of Eam. And by the way, it's also perfectly exemplified when Sakazuki was at Marijois fighting against Kuma. Like, the God's Knights didn't even come out for that. Garling didn't even come out for that. It was like, no, he is literally the you know, Tenryubito and the Gorosei's guard dog, and he's the red dog because he's a Kainu, right? That's literally how they were, like, using him. So you can understand, like, where the perspective is there. Like, the Gorosei will allow, you know, it's like, oh, okay, you want to have a world military draft. You want to move these, you know, soldiers around from the kingdoms. Fine, go ahead. We don't really care, as long as you still do what you're told, okay? And Sakazuki, I'm telling you what, man, there's going to be a straining point with Sakazuki and the world government. It's set up so much. There's going to be a point where the Marines are going to break down. It really is. And it was also just shown between Kizaru and Sakazuki. Dude, can you imagine? And I'll leave it here on this thought. But the idea that Sakazuki realizes how corrupt the world government is, and that Eam is in charge of everything, and everything was a lie, and so that makes him defect. And then Issho is already going to defect because of the whole slavery situation. So he's like, you know, I'm already done with this already. Aramaki would probably, I could see Aramaki going one of two ways with this. Aramaki would be like, you know, I look up to Sakazuki, I respect that man, whatever he does and wherever he goes, I will follow. I could see that. Or I could see with Aramaki being like, Sakazuki is betraying the world government? How dare he? I respected you, man, and you were nothing. And then maybe Aramaki and Sakazuki fight. Because we don't really know much more about Aramaki's personality. And then Kizaru, after everything that happened with Vegapunk and then his you know, argument with Sakazuki, I think Kizaru is also ready to get just say fuck it all and just leave the Marines as well, right? He's done with it. They're all exhausted and strained from the whole situation, and it's just going to get worse from here on out, right? So anyway, I'll leave you with that. That was a rather serious video, but let's end it out with something not quite as serious. Well, I guess it is. Botany is serious. All right, here we go, everybody. Tree Facts, Episode 2, The Letter B. Tree Facts. All right, today we're talking about the birch tree. Oh, yeah, you guys know about the birch tree. Living up here in Pennsylvania, birch trees are pretty common. You see them around. A lot of people like to plant them in their yards. If you ever go to, like, a harvest festival around, like, autumn, there's always a bunch of people that will take birch tree bark or the actual trunk and, like, cut it up, and they'll make, like, little, like, Christmas decorations or lawn decorations out of that. We saw some made out of, like a snowman made out of birch bark, you know, at this one we just went to. But anyway, yeah, the very indicative of the white bark that's on the outside, and it peels off very easily. This bark is extremely water resistant, which is why the indigenous tribes would use it to make boats. That's pretty cool. It's also indigenous to Europe. Over in Europe, there's the silver birch, and then we have the yellow birch in northeastern, you know, North America, and then the paper birch, which is really common, like probably around here is probably mostly paper birches. They are, you know, white bark, so it reflects sunlight, which makes it a little bit more easy to handle, especially like during the winter when there's snow everywhere. Everything kind of just reflects the sunlight, so it survives better for like temperature fluctuations. Birds really rely on their seeds. Beavers use the bark to build their dams, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on where the beaver is building the dam, I suppose. The bark also contains a substance called betulin, and it's an anti-inflammatory, so I guess you could chew on birch bark to have an anti-inflammatory effect, I suppose. And it's pretty cool because when an area is cleared, like you have to clear out a forest and you have like a field, the birch tree is usually going to be one of the first species of tree to grow in, or I guess genus of tree, to grow in that cleared out area. So it represents renewal and, you know, resurrection and things like that. So there's the birch tree. All right. Moving on to the letter C. I actually don't know any trees. No, conifers? We can talk about conifers, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out. Bye, everybody. Oh, Oh, by the way, it's a Tuesday. Me and Briggs are going to be playing the One Piece TCG an hour earlier, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got to start mentioning that on the YouTube videos. Me and Briggs have been playing the One Piece TCG for the last few weeks, and it's really fun. So my Twitch, I'll put a link below. Also, Briggs' Twitch is going to be down there, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. So come on over and check it out. Thanks for watching. Teching, signing out, end screen, all that good stuff. Merry Christmas.